My kids are swimmers. In fact, on your bulletin is one of Tana's senior pictures. She swam for 4 years of high school, and her brother and sister started swimming at the same time, so they've been swimming just as long as she has. She's now a freshman at Southwestern College, and she's got her first midterms under her belt. The twins, by the way, are now freshmen, just down the road at Satana High School. And the kids also have an older brother named Heath, and he just transferred to KU for his last couple of years, working on his undergraduate degree. He served in the Navy for 4 years before he went back to college, and so it's been a long road for him. But he was also a swimmer, just in the summers because we lived in a small town. But I know swimming is one of the reasons that he chose the Navy to be his military home rather than one of the other branches. And swimming has been a great sport for our kids. We've enjoyed so much watching them continue to improve and get stronger and get faster. Although they were a part of a team in swimming, it's also very much an individual sport. After all, when the race starts, it is my child against every other swimmer in that heat. And the message that we often would see in large black block letters scrawled on the backs of those other swimmers with Sharpie marker, like a giant swimmer's tattoo, was simply, "Eat my bubbles." That was the message to their opponents. Eat my bubbles. Their opponents, their competition, the people who were against them. Seeing how Jesus talked to his opponents in this verse from Luke led my train of thought to the sport of swimming and then the story of my own children. However, this was not a game. Jesus' opponents would eventually kill him. But here in this story, the leaders of the church have not yet begun to plot such things. The strategy seems to be that they will publicly correct Jesus, this rabbi who has gained so much notoriety, and they're going to put him in his place. It's important to understand just who exactly are called the opponents of Christ. If someone were to ask the average Christian, who are the opponents of Christ, they would probably answer something like Satan or demons. But here in this story, the opponents of Christ were those who were like him, the chosen people, the Jews. And it's not just a small band of rogue, mean men here. These men were leaders. They were learned men. They were extremely religious, and they were considered to be very holy. They studied under rabbis, and they carried out God's laws in a very strict manner. They read many additional requirements into God's law, though, than God had actually given them. However, when Jesus came, and he taught with an authority that they had never ever seen, they felt extremely threatened. Plus, Jesus was not like them. He was not religious like they were. He did not uphold the law in the way that they believed the law of God should be upheld. In fact, he consorted with known sinners. The leaders of the church would never have done such a thing. They were to be respected and to be treated with honor. But here was Jesus, teaching again and getting quite an audience. They would watch, and they would find him doing something that they considered to be wrong, and then they would put him in his place and make sure that others saw that he was not worthy of their following. He was not one of them. Listen to this story again. It was a Sabbath, and Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues. The Sabbath at that time was on Saturdays, following the pattern of God's creation and his commands to us through Moses. Sunday was the first day of the week, making Saturday the seventh. It was a day of rest. A woman who was there had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. 18 years. We don't know exactly how old this woman was, but we do know that she had been afflicted for a long time, long enough for the bones in her spine to be fused together. so that she was bent over and she could not straighten up at all. And her condition is made very clear to the readers of Luke's writing. In fact, it's described in 3 ways: by the length of time, the 18 years, by the condition, she was bent over, and by the limitations, she could not straighten up at all. Luke took time to make sure his readers understood the gravity of this woman's condition in his research and in his writing. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward. He called her forward. He didn't go to her, although she was the one who was he didn't go to her, although he was the one that was able-bodied. Instead, he called her to him. He gave her the ability to choose whether to come forward, to accept whatever gift he had to give her, or not. And she chose to come forward, even though it may have been difficult, full of roadblocks, and painful. She came to him on her own. Picture it. And he said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." He spoke them, the words she longed to hear. He gave her what she had desired for years, the desire of her heart, and she had not even asked for it. She did not have to earn it. She did not have to wait for it. It was a free gift, right there, right then. And then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Does your pastor ever ask you to put your hands on someone? It feels awkward, doesn't it? But touch is obviously very important when we read about healing in the Bible, and this story is a good example. We are not told that the woman straightened up after Jesus' words, but after the laying on of his hands. In fact, at his touch, she immediately straightened up. This woman who had been bent for 18 years, who hadn't been able to straighten up, even for a moment. What a glorious day. If you have ever been in extreme back pain, you feel her joy and her relief. Well, imagine that pain for 18 years, suddenly gone. She knew this power came from God, and she praised him. Everyone there was praising God and marveling at the power of this man, Jesus. Well, nearly everyone. Indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, the synagogue leader said to the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those days, not on the Sabbath." Well, first of all, this woman had not asked to be healed. But regardless, Jesus made it clear that the statement of the leader was out of line. Jesus, called Lord here in our scripture reading, answered him, "You hypocrites." He's not just talking to the man. He uses the plural there. He's talking to that man and everyone who agrees with the opinion of that man. "You hypocrites, doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" You see, Jesus knew the purpose of the Sabbath. God did not give us laws to bind us and to make us miserable. God gave us laws to protect us and to give us full lives. When God told us to rest on the Sabbath, it wasn't to punish us as if we had something that needed to be done. Do you know that in countries with high Jewish populations, that elevators are manned on the Sabbath so that they don't have to push their own floor button? God didn't give us these laws so that we would make silly rules and then we would find silly ways to work around them. When he gave us laws, he gave them to us for a reason. Sabbath was given to us to make sure that we took time to rest. And God modeled that day for us by doing this himself. Our God is not bound by time or by place. I wonder if he had us 20 and 21st century Americans in mind when he made this law. I wonder if he knew that work would be something that would consume some of us to the point that we no longer even know how to relate and relax. Jesus explained by making it clear that there are some things that just need to be done, including taking care of the health and the welfare of others, even animals. God did not intend suffering to take place because of this law. He intended to ease suffering. And when Jesus explained this, his opponents were humiliated. All of the man-made rules that they had put in place to support the laws that God had established were being discredited by this man, Jesus. Eat my bubbles. But the people were delighted with all of the wonderful things he was doing. Well, folks, we have also been given a free gift, one of healing, of change, of new life. And today's the Sabbath. Oh, I know it's not Saturday, but Sunday became the day that we started recognizing as the Sabbath when Jesus arose on that day. Yes, the Jews still recognize it on Saturday, and that's okay. We all have infirmities that need Jesus' healing touch. I'm not just talking about health issues here. In fact, sometimes the healing of our illnesses is not part of God's plan. And sometimes God uses those illnesses to bring healing. You may know Shannon Schneider. She grew up here with me. And you also may or may not know that she is currently battling breast cancer. Recently, she commented on Facebook that her cancer has brought blessings into her life. What? Some of you have fought a major illness, and you may be able to understand this. The new perspective on life and faith, the strong bond that's developed between family and friends, the strength that one finds within oneself, especially when God is with them. You can follow her journey on Facebook by liking her page, Pink Ribbon Journey. But often, our infirmities are not illnesses. They are addictions, weaknesses, depression, lack of self-control. And too often, rather than accepting Jesus' free gift of healing, we try to heal ourselves. What if that woman, on that day that Jesus was teaching in the synagogue, had decided to stay home? She didn't want to deal with people staring at her. She didn't want people to point and look at her deformed shape again today. Instead, she would just go back to bed. She could handle it herself. She would have missed out on Jesus' healing touch that day, wouldn't she? But don't we just do just that? We self-medicate to manage our own infirmities. We choose to handle it rather than turning to God. We use things like drugs and alcohol, gambling, pornography, affairs, overspending, food. These things don't heal us. So what keeps us from coming forward to accept the healing that we can only get from Christ? Pride. Nobody is immune to the infirmities that plague mankind. My pastor in Salina once said that you cannot be a preacher in your hometown. The Bible, by the way, makes the same point. The problem is, everyone has watched you struggle with your own infirmities. And of course, I am no exception. Some of you may be looking at me today and thinking, well, I remember when. And honestly, I don't want to hear how those statements end. But you know what? I came forward, and I chose Jesus' healing. Only Jesus can offer the type of medication that creates a new beginning by transforming us from the inside out. He offers us this free gift today and every day, and he waits patiently for us to choose to make our way forward to accept it. And he knows, and we know, that if we do choose to come forward, it may be difficult, and it may be full of roadblocks, and it may be painful, may even point and stare. But the healing we receive is so worth that journey forward. Picture it and live it.